Hey, what's going on, everybody? I hope everybody's doing well today. Hope everyone's being productive and enjoying their time off, getting things done that they want to get done. I just want to always say thank you for those who have been rocking with me this long, those who have been enjoying the content, passing stuff on. This is an organization that I'm doing is to educate and empower those to get out in their communities to spread the word of the things that are being taught. For those who are new, welcome to the channel, Rebuilding Community Trust. I'm on YouTube. I'm about to redo my Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter. Also now I'm on Anchor and Spotify. I'm going to download content for podcast materials so you can download to your phones, your computers. Just subscribe, hit the bell on YouTube for new content coming out. I have always something coming out for the notifications. Also, don't forget about Inspiration Quote Wednesdays. It's on SoundCloud. This is inspiration and it's using the Word of God and Scriptures to uplift and encourage those who's in need. Every week I try to be on time to dedicate my time to provide something that I'm going through that I can use to inspire others and get others motivated in Christ and build their relationships with Christ the best that I know how. So this is a juvenile justice video, something I've been saying I'm going to put out. So I'm going to take some time to cover some few bullet points. Not going to be before you very long. I notice my videos get kind of lengthy and they're hard to edit sometimes, so I don't want to try to be too long before you. Also, I'm starting school to finish up my degree, so it's going to be a while if I put any more new content because I'm going to be dedicated to the studies to get more information, to more knowledge to present to you guys. Also, just got in new T-shirts, so I'm wearing one right now. Definitely just trying to put out more material with the T-shirts. I'm doing hoodies, I'm doing shirts, I'm doing hats, even baby apparel. I'm doing all types of stuff, even accessories, mugs, keychains. Just anything to get people into the movement, to spread the word. Also to, be a good gift for the holidays coming up, Christmas coming up. You want to get something for someone. This definitely let me know. I'm going to put comments in below. If you want a shirt, you want something, let me know so I can order for you. And we'll discuss the details below. Also, I'll also post the shirts on the page so you can see it. If you want to order one, let me know again. And definitely get it to you before Christmas if you order now. So juvenile justice, very, very good topic. Something that I took a little time to do some research on. I want to cover a few bullet points on the introduction of juvenile justice. What's the purpose of juvenile justice in the system and how it affects our youth? I always stated that the youth is important. This is where our future comes from. We need to educate. We need to empower the youth to not only understand what's going on around them, but also to educate and empower them to get involved and to spread the word as well, because they're our future. Once we're down for the count, once we retire, once we move on in life, we got our children, we got our sons and daughters, nephews and nieces, and so on and so forth to carry the torch. So we need to educate them on the laws that's before us. It's very important that they understand the system, because a lot of the youth, as we see in the news, we see a lot of different events where the youth are getting in trouble and they don't understand what is happening. They're not aware. Their parents do the best they can. Some people don't. Some of the youth don't have parents. They don't have the guidance, the leadership to tell them, hey, this is what the system is. This is how it operates. And there's just a lot of factors involved where our youth get caught up. And they end up getting sentenced to adult criminal sentences. And then from there, they're in a system where it's not designed. So if you got any questions, comments, concerns over these topics of interest or anything that you want to talk about, please don't hesitate to leave the comments below and to address these comments and ask questions. So juvenile justice is definitely just looking at the biggest things I looked at was the government assistance and programs. So a lot of stuff that come down the pipeline. We got the 2020 elections coming up. Again, I keep mentioning it, but this is a time to research your people that you're voting for. Look at what they're doing for the criminal justice system, not on just a federal level, but a state level, because you got state elections and you got the city and local elections. All these elections are important because these are the ones that's going to support or not support the systems, the government systems. They're going to be in control of the funds. They're going to be one to advocate for these funds because that's where the money comes from for these programs. I'm going to mention a few youth intervention programs that are some of the terms that are available that you can understand that these things are important when addressing the juvenile system. So we got to start with the historical background. Juvenile justice was originated and looked at where it's going in the future and how can juvenile justice can be moved forward. According to the Center for Juvenile Justice Reform, Tim Decker describes juvenile programs back in the 1980s, which punitive measures had to increase due to high-profile crimes that were committed by juveniles that commit violent crimes. So we're thinking about the crimes that, I always refer to the Central Park 5. So I did a couple of videos back on the When They See Us Netflix special that was done, and obviously it's more material, but that's one of the prime examples of this youth of juvenile justice system in play as tried as an adult. You remember the highlights. You want to go back to the video and watch it, but some of the bigger highlights were young teens, 16, 17, 15, just a different age range, 13 to 17. They were tried for an adult crime of rape and ag assault or aggravated assault. So that system was not designed. The parents and all the support there, the aggressive pursuit from the police and the investigators put those individuals in the adult prison system, and they was there for a amount of time until the case got reviewed and they were set free. So they were put into an adult prison system with adults that committed the same crimes or worse crimes, but actually they didn't even commit it. The crimes weren't even committed by any of those guys. They was wrongfully accused and tried and convicted, and they were put into the prison system where with those who actually committed the crimes, those who created more heinous crimes, those who's been there for a long time, and they were put in that system in the mix, and they were indoctrinated into that system. And I advocate for the juvenile justice system because it's designed for those type of individuals, for youth, because of their psychological growth. They're young. They're not meant to be with adult men or adult women and indoctrinated to those programs, because that's just going to mess them up. If you saw the Netflix especially saw the outcome of a lot of those guys and their mindsets now. They're psychologically, they were traumatized. They had PTSD. They would solve things and they would engage in things, and they were put in situations where they had to make decisions at a young age and grow up into the system. Someone as young as 15, 14, they're not psychologically designed to, be indoctrinated to those type of things with adults, 30, 40, 50, even plus year old men that's been in there for so long. They get engaged with the mindsets there, and their mind become messed up. So it's very important to look at the juvenile justice system back in the 80s, the high profile crimes, the aggressive police activity, because they are reluctant to take the time to say, hey, let me look at the crime and look at what's happened. They were so easy to just lock them up, put them in jail. And that was mainly, again, we're going to talk about African Americans as a whole, the minorities. They were the ones that was targeted the most and put in these prison systems at an early age. They didn't get a fair and speedy trial, and they were just thrown in the system. And we discussed before in other videos that the criminal justice system is not designed to rehabilitate, even though the original purpose was to try to do that. But they were designed to be held, from society to, not only be tried for their crimes, but also to be locked away. So the system is no different when you lock in grown men away, a woman, and also now you're locking up juveniles 17 and below in the same system without the proper care, the proper rehabilitation, and then they become repeat offenders, or worse off, they become psychologically damaged and they can't function. So we just got to look at these things. Jeffrey Butts, with the publication from Urban Institute, elected officials throughout the U.S. are tearing down the juvenile justice system and replacing it with an ideal belief of a pseudo-criminal system, which is similar to adult rehabilitation system. So some of the other sociologists and psychologists, even criminologists, are looking at the system and seeing how can we rebuild it to make it more rehabilitative for our youth. And it goes back with the adult rehabilitation system. I always said that, and I think the mental health videos, with how we're dealing with the criminal offenders. Are we taking time to get their psyche vals? Are we taking time to rehabilitate them and make them suitable for society again? And a lot of times, depending on the crime, depending on how it's tried, depending on the manpower, the funds, all this stuff plays an effect on how the system is going to be used to rehabilitate. A lot of times, it's not rehabilitative. I mean, you got like I said before, you have a couple of doctors in there. You have all these patients, and you're trying to rehabilitate them and get them mentally squared away. Sometimes they don't get to them. Sometimes they may not be getting any type of care. And this stuff continues to affect them, especially if they're in there for life or they're in there for long periods of time. It just causes the jails to become more more damaging than to make it positive for those, you know, that's trying to transition out back into civilian life or back into the society that we're in today. A lot of them don't know how, and they get out and they're dysfunctional. They're dysfunctional and they don't know how to function in society, especially if they've been for long periods of time. They did 20, 30 years in jail in the prison system, and they're coming back in society. Things has obviously changed, technology's changed, lifestyles changed, and now they get it done. So another example is the informal quasi-civil process. Juvenile court judges have broad discretion with a quick and decisive decision change, and if hard to prove, will be released and dropped. So these juvenile court judges, they're looking at the cases that have been presented before them as far as what the crime's been committed from juveniles, and they determine what type of rehabilitation, they determine what type of intervention is provided. Real quick, I'm gonna jump on these few things with the interventions. So with juveniles, those don't know, you have different categories with different interventions. So we all know about scared straight. That's your that's one intervention to prevent those. Give the idea of what to expect. So like the intake and diversion and detention phase. So you got your diversion, which is basically getting involved with the scared straight, putting them in the prison system for a temporary time frame, just kind of getting an idea. It's very scripted. It's very, boundaries. It's not full-fledged indoctrination to the prison, but they give an idea on what's going on, get a chance to experience the lifestyle, the food, sleeping on the cot, and then interacting with the prisoners that are there. And they obviously they have their protections and stuff, boundaries, but they allow the prisoners to get engaged with them to tell them, hey, you need to straighten up your act. So diversion, detention intervention, which is, again, that's having a theory to process certain youth through the juvenile system maybe do more harm than good. So some of these programs, Scared Straight or youth intervention programs, can are made, designed for positive outcome. They're made to design to help those youth change their life around, get a taste of what's it like in prison, to say, hey, okay, this is not for me. Let me straighten my act. Let me stop doing the crimes and the stuff that I'm doing. So these those programs are state funded. So we got to continue to advocate through our elections, our electorals, to say, okay, let's continue doing these programs. And, saying always is a process to get into these programs, but we need to increase these type of programs to have intervention at an early age to hopefully, prevent youth to be put in prisons, adult prisons, long term. So these programs we got to put in place. Other ones is the judicial processing. If a youth is delinquent during a judiciary process, a disposition plan is developed. Basically, the judges propose a plan to help this individual. They use the consequences, probation, placement in juvenile correctional facility, restitution, or community service, again, or the youth intervention programs such as Scared Straight. So these programs are all designed to help the youth, and this is what we're hoping to develop, continue to develop programs in place for rehabilitative efforts. One of the things with police officers, a lot of times especially when I was doing some of the work, when you're dealing with juveniles, a lot of times you would get them and, saying we can't really put them in jail. Obviously we reach out for the guardians, we reach out for the parents. Paperwork sometimes is put on them, but, depending on what the crime is, a lot of times nothing happens. And you have systems and points, innovation programs put in place for those youth to make sure that they are basically, accounted for, and saying, hey, let's turn them over. And we get with the parents, more or less the guardians, and see what the issue is. We get with the parents and say, okay, this is what's been done. Let's try to see if we can put a plan in place to help them. That's where the Scared Straight stuff come into effect. That's where the youth intervention program. We look on the news, we see a lot of these juveniles doing crimes that are related to adults. And what they're doing now, and like I told someone the other day, what they're doing is just treating them like adults. It's especially depending on the type of crime it is. If it's something small, like a misdemeanor, third class, second class misdemeanor, they may let it slide. But a lot of times with these crimes that are getting out of hand, especially if it's ag assault, felony ag assault, or if something where it's involved in some type of big time robbery or larceny or anything major felony crimes, this stuff is going to move to the adult system. The older they get, the more chances they go into the adult system. They're doing away with the juvenile justice system. They're trying to do away with it because of the heinous, well, I don't say heinous, but the type of crimes are being committed. And that now they move into adult system to where they're being tried as such. The advocate part of it, the advocate piece of it is being able to speak out to these to our electorals and say, hey, we need to keep these programs in place. We need to make sure that someone is speaking out for the youth and making sure that we can find ways to get them early so we can keep them out the system. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to minorities, depending on where they're at, it depends on what kind of advocacy is available in those areas. You know what I'm saying? Depending on where they live. Well, there's not a lot of advocacy for these youth, and they just get thrown into the system. All they're doing is contributing to the adult system, and then from there, it adds on. Say they get part of the adult system, they come back out. Or their chances are committing a crime again or being traumatized by what's going on in there can be a lot higher without the rehabilitative measures that are put in place. It was a case, I'll post it on the page. It was an individual that went to jail for stealing a backpack or alleged steal a backpack. And he ended up getting involved in the system. And next thing you know, he comes out and he commits suicide. Young kid, 16, 17-year-old, straight A student, you know, just got caught up and he went to prison for a short time frame for something that they put alleged or charged for or convicted over something he said they said he did, which he didn't do. And he ended up coming out and he was so traumatized and psychologically damaged from being in prison that he ended up taking his own life. So that's just an example in itself. Again, I'll post it on the page of the exact details, but this is why we need to have advocates in place for the juvenile justice system and continue to keep the system alive. The system is bad in itself, but we need, we can't stop crime. You know, we can't stop, a juvenile, a young kid making mistakes because people out here going to commit crimes, juveniles, or teenagers, or what the case may be. But we need to have a good lawyer. We have to have mentors and advocates, criminologists. You have to have certain people to study this stuff more in detail to know, okay, what's going on. Let's look at the interests of the child. If obviously, again, refer back to Central Park 5, they didn't have that right representation. They was forced and coerced to make a statement. Basic stuff of knowing what you should and should not do. Lawyer up if you're charged with a crime. Stating the facts, putting stuff on paper, having a good representation present to make sure that they know what's going on and do things full in detail. A lot of times, again, it's up to the parents and also the guardians to make sure that these individuals are aware of what their rights are. You know, make sure that these youth are aware of what their rights are. You know, it's up to the parents to make sure that they're there to support and advocate and make sure protect their kids and make sure they make the right choices when it comes to having a lawyer up if it's something somehow they were charged for a crime. There's a lot of challenges lie ahead in undoing the traditional system. Again, it's going to be the advocates. It's going to be going out in the communities, teaching and empowering people to get aware, to know what their laws are. I mean, the school system is do what they can to teach that, but it's going to take a lot of times getting involved and learning your laws, learning what you can and cannot do, and then also learning how the stuff works with the criminal justice system. If you happen to be a product of the juvenile criminal justice system, learn everything about it. You know what I'm saying? Pass the word on to someone else. If you happen to get caught up, learn everything that you need to learn. You know what I'm saying? So when you won't only put yourself back in a position, but you can advocate for others and tell them how to do it. It's all about knowledge. You know what I'm saying? Just like the shirt. Knowledge, awareness, empowerment. Gotta know what's going on. You can't sit there and let the system be advantageous so you can study and know what's going on with your people. You know what kind of people you're voting for and put in office from your city, local, state, and federal levels. They're the ones that's going to set the tone. They're the ones going to set the pace. Getting out and vote and making your voice heard is what's going to count. If you don't do nothing about it, you don't vote, you don't study up, you don't know what's going on in your communities, you're not going to be aware to know what the changes that need to be made in your community. You're not going to be able to voice out your opinions to get the changes made. And this is one of the critical topics. I mean, we talk about gun laws, we talk about economy, socioeconomic issues. A lot of people don't talk about criminal justice systems. A lot of people don't talk about what they can change in the laws. We do a lot of those, but we don't deal with There's different issues in the criminal justice system. So again, get involved with your voting. And we over a couple of like I said, intervention struggles. We did judicial processing, detention, intake, initial contact referral. So that's your initial contact is when law enforcement officers committed an offense. They get arrested. They're taken to the station and getting referred and booked. That's the very beginning stage, until all the way down to you got intake, which is you're getting processed. Diversion, that's where you're going through the system and you're put inside the jail system, the juvenile system, general pop or set off to the side into own cell. Detention, where you're held until trial, and then you're usually from there you're convicted, then you go into a different facility. Also the counseling and assessments, and also plans of action to support and get intervention skills going, so we can get start rehabilitation process. This is for the juvenile justice system, not so much the adults. And also finding plans, the judge, his advocacy services, child family services, all types of resources that are there to get these kids back on track. So I think that with the system overall, it has these things in place. We just got to maintain them and be able to get people aware, and also make sure that we're getting funding. The funding is where it's going to come into play. Keep the systems alive and to make sure we're looking out for our youth, because at the end of the day, they have the stuff in place to set these youth up for success. It always going to be picture perfect, because people are going to continue to be repeat offenders, but those that do change, it's a success story. That's the benefit of the system, to set up for the youth to make sure that they're getting what they need to be good citizens early on. Unfortunately, it's always a lot of work to put into it. And there's people that's trying to get rid of the program. They're changing the stuff to where it does fit adults and does get the adult processing, and get people put in adult prisons as a youth or a teenager, 17 and below, pseudo criminal. So those, like I said again, we have to continue to advocate for that, advocate for those resources. Thinking about your son or daughter going into that adult system is going to traumatize them. It's going to cause them to be in a whole different world. As a developing child, 17 and below, you're still developing, you're still learning, you're still in the process of maturity and growing. You don't need to be put into those type of systems, adult systems where you have 30, 40, 50-year-old men and women that's been hardened by life, that's committed serious crimes, that a lot of them are probably there for a while or already been there for a while, and you putting that young teen into that adult system, it's going to rip them apart. You're doing more harm than good. You're going to rip them apart, and say they come back out, they're not going to be the same. Their whole life is pretty much done. And I'm not saying it's impossible for them to recover, but with all the resources that they're available, but it's just that the child's life will never be the same. You know what I'm saying? Because of being integrated with an adult prison system. And it's been proven through time, through interaction with, youth and adult prisons, it's been proven. So that's pretty much my take on the juvenile justice system. Like I said, I'm put some resources on the page. Please pass this word again. The youth is important. We have to get people involved. We have to get people knowledgeable on what's going on with these systems, these criminal justice systems, the whole court legal processing. Learn about your intervention strategies. If your son or daughter or relative that's young, 17 and below, get caught up and they're put in the system, have them educate themselves on what they can and cannot do. Help them provide the resources to understand what they have going forward. Mistakes are made, but life can change. It does be up to the youth to make the change, because some people don't want to change. Some people not saying enjoy, but they're caught up and they don't choose to get out the situation they're in. All you can do is provide the resources. But for those that are caught up and they really have a true, genuine change to go forward and get out that system, then there's plenty of resources for it, intervention strategies for it, to get them back on track, to get them back where they need to be. The youth got to be saved. So with all the heinous crimes and all the stuff that they're doing now, the youth, you see on the news, innocent people getting beat up by teens and robbed and doing all types of high felony type crimes. This is why they're moving towards the adult system, because of the type of crimes that the juveniles and the youth are committing early on, 17 and below, 18 and below, sometimes 19 and below. But by that point, you're 18, 19, 20, you're moving into the adult stage of prison, or being convicted and tried in a prison, an adult prison. So you got to reach these kids 17 and below. The more type of crimes that's high felony level, the more times out of 10 they're going to do away with juvenile justice system and start moving them into the adult prison system. So got to educate. Again, share this with someone. Like I said, I'm in school now, so it's going to be another minute before I put another video. We're going to probably touch on next looking at citizen review boards, or I might do sexual assault since I'm waiting on my credentials and my certification to come back. Like I said, took this class back in September. A lot of good knowledge, information, and sexual assault is very prevalent right now, not only just nationwide but worldwide. So it's probably going to be the next couple of videos that I'm going to start working on. Again, don't forget about the merchandise. I'll post a shirt as well so people can see, get them in different colors, size, and shapes. Doesn't matter what size you want. I can do from medium to XL, double XL, triple XL. Like I said, I got accessories coming out. I got more designs that I'm working on as well. So you don't only get this design, you can get other designs that you want. But please support, get the merchandise so we can pass this on. We can spread this movement. It's all about love and rebuilding community trust in our communities with local law enforcement and with each other. So be blessed. Thank you for tuning in. Subscribe, hit the bell, leave a comment below. Anything you want to say, any questions, any comments, any critiques. I mean, again, I'm not perfect with it, but this is stuff that I'm passionate about, and this is stuff I took time to study. So if you got any comments, please leave them below. Stay tuned. Be blessed.